Yeah, cloud it is. Hello, everyone. Tabisa, I shall just go ahead and share my screen, if that's okay.
That's fine. I think they're just still coming in, so
Yeah.
just trying to mute for that have not muted.
Awesome. I think now we can start. So, hello everyone. My name is Dennis, and I have my co-host Tabisa. Glad you are born in the months that led to this breakout room. I will now hand it over to Tabisa to lead us throughout the session. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session. And my colleague Dennis is going to take us through. You will see on the screen. He's going to be doing the writing on the screen on the two screens that he is sharing with us. Okay, here we have a what we call a wheels human-powered emptying and transport component, which basically on the cactus, you get it as the first thing that you get is the content. As Dennis is showing there, you need to complete the content, which is very basic information that you need to be talking to in terms of the very basic information that you need to be talking to in terms of the system that you're looking at. This system is a system that is not a real system, but it's from Zambia, which we are just giving an example of. It's called a system in Zambia, but it's not the real data of any system that is existing. It's just for demonstration purposes. So on the content, what we have, it includes emptying of fecal sludge from catchment and transportation, and transporting it to a treatment or legitimate disposal point when any steps is done manually. The most common example of this component is manual pit emptying, but it is important that it includes actual transport to the treatment unit or treatment plant. In this case, the operator owns a truck that is used to transport waste. If the waste was disposed in a nearby river or drain ditch, then it would be an emptying only human powered component instead of it being emptying and transportation that we are going to look at. So the data is encompassing that kind of information. Just to also remind you, people in these breakout rooms, we have developed, or Leeds has developed some manuals which accompany these worksheets or these workbooks that we will be taking you through. Those manuals would walk them through the data entry if we weren't doing it together. But because now we are doing it together, I think Dennis is going to be our manual because he's just going to take us through that process, and then I guess with my voice on that one. Okay. So if we just go straight, dig in straight to the contents. If you are looking at this, if you're looking at from row 6 to row 22, those in there, as you can see there up until row 26, which is pre-filled for us. And then the service information, it helps us understand how many people and households are served by a particular data point, as you can see there. Because we just really need to ask per capita and per household. The number of people and household served is very important, but also it is not always straightforward to get that information. So therefore, in this case, we have a pretty good estimate of a number of people served. And then the report of 34 containments served per month, with 1 containment per household. Each containment is emptied between 1 and 3 years, or on average of 2 years, where you get the emptying. Okay, he is, okay, as you can see, Dennis is going to show us now, if you go to cell number 34, where of households that are being served. Then he's just putting that equation there in terms of on cell number C29. Sorry about that. Okay, then you multiply it. Okay, so what Dennis has done there, he's just entered what we are saying, the 34 household per month, which is 12 months times 2 years, which is the number of the years that we are assuming that it is emptied on, or on 2 years. And then you get that value, which is 816. Okay, and then if you move to cell number C30, then again, you want to calculate the average household size, which is taken as to be as 6 people for this example, per household. And then you just enter that number, and then number of people served is then number of households served, is serving 6 people. So on cell number 28, that's what Dennis is doing for us there. Okay. All right. Okay. And then for just to just like usually in this section or in this area, we would ask some additional questions here when we are talking to people on site here, as to which will help us deduce the appropriate number of the people served if it was not straightforward. But for the sake of this case or this exercise, we'll just skip those questions. We won't be asking a lot of questions. We'll just take it that number is actually just straightforward to 6, and then we take it from there. And that's basically your context. So it's very basic before you go into to the most of your details. And then if there's anything, Dennis, that you want to add, you can add from your side before we move to direct capex. And then also, we're fine. Okay. And then we move to direct capex after we have inserted all that information. And then, what we're looking at on direct capex, if then there is an issue, so I'm sorry, I must also just say, if you've got a question, you can raise your hand. You see on the 3 dots there, you just put up your hand, and then we can take the question, and or otherwise you can write on the chat. And then if you're looking at direct capex, we have the physical assets. So simple manual emptying tools, we have 2 lines for emptying tools, but these are purchased every 3 or 6 months, and therefore should be considered OPEX and unreported in this case, as he is showing us, as Dennis is showing us there. And then if you move to, just let me know if I'm moving too fast. And then if we move to carts or the wheelbarrows that are being used, here we do have 2 push carts that are used for transportation, and the cost of each is 1,500 kwacha each. So what Dennis is going to do now is going to go to the spreadsheet, and then he's going to enter that number of 1,500 cost of that, and then multiply by the 2 carts that we have as it is entered on B10.
Sure.
So it just depends on the number that you have.
Sorry, Tapisa,
so basically, really here, there. Oh, May has got a hand there.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I was just wondering, the spreadsheet is designed to be used by who? Who is supposed to be entering all this information?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, the idea for the spreadsheet is that this is an interface used for a data collector in any context who is collecting specifically sanitation data costs for sanitation. So basically, the spreadsheet will be with a data collector, and this is likely to be a finance officer in a sanitation organization or similar. And so basically, the idea is for them to have access to organization and for them to input it in this Excel sheet.
Okay, because I was just wondering if somebody is not so proficient with Excel, for example, the way you're putting the formulas in the cells, wouldn't it have been better to just have the cells have the embedded, the value embedded within the cell, and then all the person needs to do is to put 2, and when they put 2, it automatically calculates 2 times 5,000 and produces the result there? Because I'm just wondering, if people are not as proficient with Excel, then there might be a problem with them putting in those formulas as it is. It will take a whole lot of training for them to be proficient in the use of these spreadsheets.
Yeah, thank you. I think
I'm just thinking aloud here.
I agree. I think that's great feedback, and that's the kind of feedback that you're also hoping to gather in this exercise as we continue to look for collaborators to help collect more sanitation cost data. But the idea in this scenario is to really just show you the general idea of using a tool that will help collect some costs in a very parametric method. So basically, I think I would say we would love to engage you more in this and just probably get to hear more of the feedback you have in terms of the interface. Yeah, and we also have Ruthie, who is also in the call. So Ruthie, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, thanks so much. I was going just to add 2 notes. One is that what we're not going into here is the manual. And so there is a detailed manual that is kind of the screenshot that we shared that accompanies each workbook. And so that is meant to address some of the possibilities for confusion. What we're trying to do here is make it standard in the workbook and then use the manual to support people who might be filling this out in filling it out correctly. The second thing I would say is, I think it is very reasonable to expect that there may be some cutoff point in terms of proficiency. And what we've sort of over the course of developing this, what we've been constantly working with is making like sort of drawing lines and making thresholds so that we can get again to the standardization that we're really trying to aim for. So not directly addressing your question, but I think just that question made me want to mention also these 2 other pieces, which is there's a manual which helps with a lot of these pieces, and that at some point we do recognize that it may not be possible to make this totally accessible to everyone. And so what we're hoping to do, particularly through the piloting, is to find out how many people that's really a challenge for what you've said or for other issues that may come up. And that's a key thing that what we're hoping to do is we've gotten quite far, but want to make sure that we don't solve for problems until we have a sense of which problems actually exist with users. And I will hand it back to you, Theresa.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you so much for that comment, May. I think it also helps us in also taking forward some of those comments that you've just made now. All right, my colleagues, okay, so what I was saying is that the confidence in cost estimate allows us to give some indication of certainty or confidence in the estimate. In this case, we know the cost exactly because we have records of the exact purchase cost. Other costs, particularly operating cost, might be more variable, and you might use this box as he is showing us to indicate a range within which the cost normally falls. So, okay, that's good. Okay, and then you'd indicate the lifetime, which is how often do you expect to replace the card which you are using, which is indicated as 3 years earlier. So then he is just going to enter there that on cell number E10, we have said on that one, it's 3 years, and then the year it was purchased on cell number F10, and then you put that one because in this case, we know all those details. Those are the questions that you would be asking the person that you are wanting to get information from on that one. We'll then leave this box as is indicating to indicate if cost is incurred but not reported blank. This might get used if an operation is able to borrow a truck for free from a utility or was given the land for the office. And then you capture the notes for all relevant details now regarding that. The type of notes basically that you would capture in most instances, they recommend having a printed copy of pre-filled workbook nearby before you go out on site. You've already collected some information and then you put that information there so that when you're going out, you are talking to also that. So those are the notes that you would want to put in. And then we're gonna move to looking at transportation vehicles. Because once you've done that, okay, that on that column, the truck for transportation gets reported here, and the cost is basically 11,649 GBP. And on cell number B11, we're going to just enter that value, which is also you are taking from the worksheet that we have. And note that the currency has auto-completed or auto-filled with the kwacha in this case, because we entered this on the context tab earlier, as we were talking about earlier. We should replace that here with GBP because the sheet indicates that the truck was purchased in pounds. Then you can also make a change on cell 11, sorry, C11. Thank you. And then you move to the lifetime, which is 10 years, and the truck was purchased in 2016. On cell number E11, you enter that information, and F11, the year that it was purchased, which is 2016. And then on H11, you type your notes of what you want to really indicate in terms of that. That's your transportation. So if we look at the list of costs, these are the only direct physical assets that we can talk about, that we can really put in there. So you can put the comment there. There could be other ones, but in this particular one, these are the only direct ones that we want to highlight. Okay, and then you might have major and extraordinary repairs. We don't have anything listed in the data sheet that qualifies as a major and extraordinary repair. In this example, it's fine. This operator might consider all repairs under maintenance, which we will report under OPEX when we are going to OPEX. The trucks are also fairly new, so they may not really have incurred or have a good estimate yet for major and extraordinary repairs. That might be a good argument to check then in terms of are there any missing costs which you want to really talk about. We'll leave that one blank for now in this case. Okay. Then I think we are moving to indirect capex to look at, okay, what are the things that we want to be highlighting on indirect capex. If I'm moving too fast, Ruthie or Dennis, you can just like highlight if I skipped anything.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, right. And again, if there's anyone who wants to just like put a chart there, Ruthie is there, who would pick up that, because we know that we know some of us would like to just like type our comments and then not voice it out, but we are welcome to do anything that is coming.
Absolutely. And just adding on to that, that we have a nice small group and May did a lovely job jumping in, but part of what we want to accomplish with this is to really just get you familiar and to see what it actually looks like to do this. But it doesn't have to be you don't have to just be a quiet audience. So if there are thoughts that come up, please do jump in. either by raising your hand, speaking in the chat, whatever you'd like. We are happy to hear from you, and also happy to keep walking us through, knowing that this will perhaps prompt some questions or reflections. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruthie, for that. Okay, and then if we move to indirect capex, there are no indirect capex in this one, which probably makes sense. We usually see these for an administrative office, which you often don't have on a manual emptying. But if we were talking about mechanical emptying, then we might be talking about that, that would have indirect capex. Okay, having said that, not having that, we will then have the direct OPEX in this case, which we will be looking at. Things like salaries, because we do know that we've got the people and then the salaries that are being paid, we've got your drivers. As on the sheet, the cost of this is 1,806 kwacha per month. That is your driver. And we want the annual salary. So we want to calculate what would be the annual salary for that driver. And then on cell B6, that's where we enter the 1,806 times the 12 months. And in D6, my colleague, yes, is going to select then the plus or minus the percentage there in cell D6. And then on F6, you add your notes. That is the other stuff listed here would fall under indirect OPEX. So that is for that section. That's maybe some of the comments that you would want to put on that and whatever you want to highlight on that one. And then variable staff payments, because there's those variable staff payments, wages or commissions paid to staff on a variable basis, because you get such cases, especially when we're working with what we are looking at. We've got the pit entiers commissions, which fall under variable staff payments because they are paid on a commission basis. That's what we have on there, yes. So this session is meant to just account for variable staff costs, while the previous one is for fixed staff, basically your salaries. And then on cell B12, we will enter that value.
Without chicken. I'm sorry.
On cell B12, we will just enter that variable value that we are given for variable costs. And then we move to D12. Ruthie, can you just mute?
$1,000.
I don't actually have the ability to do it, but I will ask Anthony, could you please mute yourself?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Anthony. Okay, and then
it looks like we have another hand from Oliver.
Okay, Jones, I think Oliver has raised his hand. Hi.
Yeah, thank you, and it's great to see the work you put into developing this sheet. I don't want to take up. I was wondering how much time we have, and I've got lots of questions, but they're not so much about the specific entering of data. So, is this the time to talk about that, or is this session really just about how these sheets are filled in? Because I'm sort of really interested about it, a bit related to the question from May, as well as who's going to use this and when they're going to use it, and how we envisage using it, and how data is brought together. Is that coming later, or?
Yes, so that is precisely what is going to happen when we go back to plenary. Okay. Is we're going to share the completed ones. But if there's anything really pressing, I think you can feel free to, particularly if any of your questions are around not necessarily like what is the cost of a truck or a driver, but around interacting with the sheet, we'd also be happy to hear that now. I think what I can promise is that when we go back, we're going to see the completed workbooks. There are sort of two different ones that are being done, and then Barbara will talk us through sort of how it gets analyzed and what the outputs are. But if there are questions about users or interaction with these tools, this would be a fine place to raise those.
Okay, so again, I commend what's been done here. I've worked a lot on financing and gathering financing data, so I hear all the challenges that you set out at the beginning there, Ruthie, about data is difficult to compare, and we're supporting WaterAid at the moment with a fiscal decentralization study across 7 countries, and we've designed some tools. So I guess one of my questions is the flexibility in these tools, because things are so different in different contexts. Even every time you put a line in, even that line, it can be interpreted differently in a different context. And then obviously, so is the idea here to have a very standard format that can be collated at the global level? Or is it about supporting local people understand their costs, in which case there's more, I think there's a bigger case for flexibility in the system because you're really just trying to help local people? Or is it really about having a standardized system so we can then try and collate that at the global level? I guess that's one question I have, but amongst 100 others, but I'll try and start with that one.
Well, it would be great if you're developing tools, and we'd love to have your input and to stay in touch after this on some of the more specific pieces. What I can say about to your question, and then I will give the floor back to Dennis and Theresa, is that really what we're after here, I would say the primary objective is the piece that you said in terms of standard, a global standard, so that we can compare costs. And so what we've actually really been doing here is trying to make the tools flexible to the extent that they can be flexible while still giving us these standard inputs for our analysis. And what that means is things like the confidence interval and the notes column, as well as trying to be, again, like as flexible as possible, which partially comes from being really clear. There's a different workbook for each of those definitions that we shared. And so partially by being clear about which kind of system it is, our hope is that there's a little bit less flexibility needed once you get really specific about the type of system. And but through things like the notes column, we're able to capture this. But as an overarching sort of guide throughout this, we have really tried to say, ultimately, we know that some nuance may be lost, and we're comfortable with losing some nuance. We're trying to capture as much nuance as possible. We recognize that we need to lose some nuance in order for the data to be comparable. So this is not designed with the primary objective of helping people understand their costs in local contexts. However, as you'll see when we come back together in plenary, it is, if you can kind of get your data in here, there's a lot that you can get out of it. Lisa, I will give the floor back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Oliver as well for those comments or the questions, which we will talk more when we go back to the plenary. Okay, if we just go back to our spreadsheet to just show you how to complete that. And thank you, Ruthie, for also helping that. Okay, we then have a non-salary expenses. So we were talking about salaries, and then we talked about variable staff payments. Now we're looking at non-salary expenses for permanent or long-term staff. Things like annual vaccinations, we all know that, especially working with the wastewater. We can assume that most vaccinations are for the emptiers and the drivers because they are the ones that are in direct contact. This cost about 11,000 kwacha every 6 months. So twice a year, the vaccinations are being given to the people. And then we go back to your spreadsheet, and then on your spreadsheet, there, as it is shown there, you put the amount of in kwachas in B19 and multiply by 2, which is every 6 months or twice a year. And then you move to just selecting the percentage in D19, the confidence in the cons estimate, and we add the notes in F19 in terms of what you want to really highlight there in that situation. And then we move then to maintenance, transport vehicle maintenance, as we all know. Report the truck maintenance here at 3,000 kwacha every 3 months or four times per year. If you go to B19, you will look, you can see there under the maintenance, you get information of the maintenance trucks there on column or number 11. You can see there, you enter in B19 of your spreadsheet, 3,000 times 4 times a year, which is on a quarterly basis. This cost can be less predictable. It's an average, but it might be variably, it must variable year to year, because in some years you might find that it's less, in some years it might be more. So we can select a higher uncertainty in the confidence. As you can see there on B19, sorry, on D19, he's selecting the 10% because plus or minus 10% because of that now. And then you add the notes on F19. That's an example there. Okay, and then other maintenance, because we all know that there's other maintenance that unforeseen do happen. Report the push cut maintenance here because it doesn't fit in any of the other categories that we have shown on the spreadsheet. So therefore, if you enter on B28, or you'll take it to B28, because it's looking at these other maintenance that you want to be looking at. Those estimated costs, 8,790 kwacha. In B28, you just enter it as it is, no stretch, no calculation there. This is also an average value that might not be well known, depending on who you are talking to and then what the amount of information that they have. But you can select then on the confidence, again, the higher one, which is 10%, as he has done. We put the notes there. And then we move to consumables. As we know, the consumables like fuel, the cost is given as 160 liter of fuel per month on our information sheet at 14 rand at 14.23 kwacha per liter. And then you take that, and then you take the liters, multiply by 14 kwacha times 12 months on B32. Because you need to understand over a period of 12 months how much you are going to spend or you are spending on fuel. And then you select again a confidence, because again there it depends on where you are in terms of the fuel, because that one also is not, you're not so sure. It varies. Then you select a higher one, which is a 10%. And then you add notes there in terms of, maybe you can even describe as to why you're selecting that, because of the variability of the fuel at a particular time. Okay, then we are going to then, okay, he's putting those notes for us.
It might need to be our last one. I think it is just about time to return to the plenary.
Oh, okay. All right. So we are running out of time. Okay. Another example, then there will be your PPE. We'll just take the PPE example quickly. On row 20 in that data, you enter, and then you are given that your PPE would cost 18,180 kwacha per year, and then you enter that in B34 as it is, and then you select the confidence level, which basically is your 0% in B34, and you add in your notes. So you just let me know when I'll be talking to myself.
Well, I think now is the moment.
To the plenary.
Yes, so we're returning now. So just as a reminder, what you'll need to do is you'll need to exit this room and go back to the link, which I will paste here. Just
now
so
is the
that
moment to return.
Find it. And you can rejoin the main plenary session. Let's see.
Thank you, Tabitha.
Thank you so much, Dennis.
Thank you.
Right, see you in the plenary, everyone.
See everyone in the plenary. Okay, the link is there. Let's use the link to go back.
Great. Thank you, Teresa and Dennis. Thank you, May, for the participation and comments.
Thank you.
Dennis and Teresa, you can go back and I can be the last one here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm afraid I'll close it and I'll like remove.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Oh,
I think it's
spreadsheet as well.
I think you can you can proceed to close it, Dennis, even when you're leaving.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.